Hello, fans of the Chicago Bear. Let's talk Chicago Bears show. Happy Monday, more or less. I wouldn't say it's a happy Monday in the Bears locker room, would you? Mm-mm. Well, today's jersey was number 44, and most of you probably wouldn't even remember him. His name was Klutz. And so I thought I'd wear this jersey today because it was a Klutz Fucks game yesterday. You like how I did that? A little bit behind this. This was, gosh, he was on the Bears. I should have looked it up, but it doesn't matter. I can remember. He was on the Bears. I was working at Fresenius. So it was probably 2010, 2010 and 2011. And when he came on the team and he was playing, I was like, Klutz. There's a football player. His last name is Klutz. It just really made me laugh. So my boss happened to know somebody that had the jersey or something like that, and I got it cheap. He had it, and he didn't. I don't know how I got it, but I didn't spend much money, so it was worth it. It was like $20, and I was like, for the funniness of it. So I have worn it. One time I wore it to a game, and I had a lot of people coming up to me at the Bears game, going, "Love the jersey." So yes, that's why I put Klutz on today because that was a klutzy game yesterday. It was a cluster fuck. All right. So I guess this isn't good for children this week. So we lost 19 to 11. We gave up one touchdown and four field goals for 19 points. And we could only score one field goal and a touchdown in the last 2 to 3 minutes of the game, which in my opinion never counts because the game's already over. That's it's like it only helps the stats. And we were playing the number one defense. There's no doubt about it. So number one, we got to give a shout out to Indy. That defense looked really good. I'd like to see them play somebody really good because we're not really good, but I do give a shout out to them because they were good. But Nagy, I'm not a. I like Nagy. I'm very torn about him. We needed a new coach, that was for sure. And I loved him in the beginning. Now sometimes I like him, sometimes I don't. His play calling had started getting better this year, but yesterday's play calling horrible. Do you know in the first half, except for I think one play, one first down in the first half, so the first and second quarter, every time the Bears had first down, he ran the ball. He didn't, sometimes do this, sometimes do that, every single time. Well, hello, they're not stupid, okay? And what was I saying on Friday? We need to run the ball. We ran the ball for 28 yards. Of course, you could say to me, we couldn't run the ball because they were so good. Yes and no. Had we stuck with it and maybe done a few more play action passes, get into the don't stand under center so much. Go back and do a drop off of 4 or 5 yarder to Montgomery before, because they have really good safeties. So do that so that the safeties aren't getting him, and then he can take off because he's a tough guy. But if you're not going to use him, Montgomery, why did you draft him? That's what I'm saying. You got to run the ball in the NFL if you want to win all the way. And Nagy, it was just terrible. I blame a lot of the loss on Nagy because he called a terrible game. Now, the defense, we can't really say much about them. Sure, you could say they gave up 19 points, but it was one touchdown and four field goals. And they were on the field way more than the offense was yesterday. But they still went at it. And you know what? And I heard the announcer saying this too. If you score 19 points, you only give up 19 points, you should win that game. As much as that defense was on the field and only gave up, they were down in the red zone a lot and they gave up four field goals. Those could have been four touchdowns, and think of the score. 4 times 7, 28, plus the other 7 they had. So it would have been, 30 something, and it would have looked worse. But it was worse. I mean, the game was just terrible. And then the other thing I talked about on Friday, and I've been talking about every week, penalties. Got worse again yesterday. 8 penalties, 103 yards. 103 yards. 103 yards. If we started at the end zone, we would have scored a touchdown with 103 yards. You can't go backwards. But if you're... Sorry. My mind is going so fast, but I can't keep up with my mouth, which is hard to believe, isn't it? If you know me. But the Bears aren't good enough to overcome penalties. We're not, they're not a good team, like really good teams that they can do that. But then really good teams don't do that. And Bears cannot keep going backwards. Some of those, and you know what? Most of those penalties were legitimate penalties. And like the week before, we got a couple that were not. But yesterday, the Bears deserved pretty much every penalty they got. I mean, you can't do that and continuously win. Our third down, ratio terrible. I think we were like 4 out of 16 or something like that, wasn't it? I didn't write it down, but I meant to. And it was like, come on. And the 28 yards running, it just was, we give up the block on the punt right away. So you're like, first you go 3 and out, which really bugs the shit out of me. When the Bears go 3 and out, that's never a good sign. And then they get the blocked punt. So I'm like, oh God, here we go. And it really was like that. And, the defense, a little updates, we'll talk on some good things. So there are some good things going on with our defense, I'll tell you. So we've got, I think 9 sacks altogether. Hicks, my man, 96, has 3.5 sacks. Mack has a sack and a half. Mango has 1, Quinn has 1, and Urban, a newer guy, he's on the defensive line, the front guys. He got a sack yesterday. We have so far 3 interceptions this year. Bush has 1, Fuller has 1, and Gibson Jr. has 1. So I'd like to see the turnovers a little bit more. I think we need to get more turnovers, but our defense, all in all, is really holding up. You got to give them a lot of credit because let's face it, for how long they were out there. Thank God, I said to my son, it was a cool day in Chicago because I think it was maybe 60 at the most, might have been in the 50s in Chicago. So thank God it wasn't a hot day because they would have been beat to shit. They would have been because they were on the field so long. And you got to remember, Mack has a bum knee. He's playing with a bad knee, and people might say, well, why isn't he doing better? Which he is, but he's got a bad knee and he's playing. So the offense it was like the olden days. It was like, reminded me of the olden days, some of the Bears games where it's only defense and there's no offense. So, and this is where it comes to I pretty much gave you the facts of yesterday. Bottom line is we sucked. I'm 50-50 on pulling Mitchell out of last week's game and putting Nick Foles in. Now, people say, but Nick Foles came back and won the game. But I could be on the other side and say, but how do you know that Mitchell wouldn't have come back and won the game? Because he had done it in the previous other games where they came back and they scored a ton of points. What was it, second game? Yeah, against New York. And he did it. So how do we know he wouldn't have done it last week? And when Mitchell was in, we were running the ball a lot more successfully. I'm just saying. And now that you all can say, it has nothing to do with yesterday. And you could be right. My concern and I know Mitchell is not going to be Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, any of that stuff. I know he's not. And my concern to get through this year, because I knew Mitchell's gone after this year. Once they didn't pick up his option and he came out of the gate this year pretty flat, you knew he was gone. Like I said, he should have a for sale sign up in front of his house. But my concern is everybody says Nick Foles is the answer. Nick Foles is the answer. He's going to win it all for us. And if Nick Foles was really that good, he wouldn't have been on 9 different teams the last how many years he's been in the NFL. If he were that good, you don't jump around from 9 teams. And I know he won the Super Bowl a few years ago for Philadelphia, but basically Wentz got him to there and then went down in the 13th or 14th week and then with the injury, and then Nick Foles came in. He was in the right place at the right time, and he was humming. The team was humming, so he hummed along. So, he's not a bad quarterback. He's a serviceable, good quarterback, too. But he obviously didn't pull any rabbits out of his hat yesterday, and that's my concern. Although, again, number 1 defense in the league, and they showed us why. But I just think Nick could have been better, and I wasn't impressed. He overthrew several receivers that were open yesterday, just like Mitchell did. So, but So the bottom line, my concern, and I'm going to tell you mine, is that okay? So I would have stuck with Mitchell just a little bit longer because you didn't have preseason. So maybe another game or two, at least another game, to see how he did yesterday and see if he could have come back and won that game last week because we don't know. Remember that. We just don't know. He didn't get a chance. So I would have left him in a little bit longer because my concern is so what happened was they take Mitchell out, which we know Nagy's been wanting to do since day one. He didn't even want to give Mitchell the starting job, but he had done better in the few practices they had without no preseason, so he had to give it to him because he was the incumbent. So it was probably a tie, and they had to give it to him. But Nagy does not want him playing. Nagy don't like him. Nagy liked him 2 years ago when they were 12-4. It was Nagy's first season because Mitchell was being Mitchell. And he was still learning, but Nagy kind of let him be his own quarterback. Last year, Nagy tried to make him be the quarterback that Nagy wants him to be. And I think, and Mitchell's biggest problem is reading defenses. So if he was better at that, he'd be playing. But maybe they need to spend more time and work with him so that he can work. Is he getting the needed interest from his head coach to make him a better quarterback? I think Nagy is pushing him aside because once Nick Foles became the Bears quarterback in offseason, Mitchell was out of Nagy's head. He's like, good, I got the quarterback I want because he doesn't like Mitchell. And that's just a fact. But I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think your buddy Foles is going to take us to the Super Bowl either. So, again, all right, we're going to swing it back around. I keep going around the block, and I don't get to my point. So the point is, so they take Mitchell out. They put Nick Foles in, and he doesn't do the job any better. We go through a couple games. All right, game one down. Now he's got to play Tampa Bay Bucks next Thursday night, and they're good, and they have Tom Brady, but that's the defense, not him. But they're good, and if he doesn't do it good again, then what are you gonna do? Then you're gonna put Mitchell back in, who's now messed up in his head because you just told him he sucks, and he's no longer wanted in Chicago. So now what are you gonna do? That was my concern. Is that if he did this too early and he didn't really make sure that Mitchell didn't have it, I don't know. I know in Chicago are saying, Nick Foles. Okay, believe me, I want the Bears to win. I don't care who's at quarterback. I don't care if I was at quarterback. Well, I would care if there was a few people, but you know what I mean. I want to win. I'm just concerned. And you know what? Next year, and this is next year, we got to, in the draft, get a quarterback, obviously, because Nick is not the future either. But I don't know. I'm really concerned. I'm so, the jury's out for me on whether this was a good move and whether Nick's going to do it. I know everybody wants him to, and I do too, because I want to win. And we have such a good, our defense isn't great because I think we were rated 15th. We're 15th in the league. I don't know after yesterday's game what we are, but I got to find out what Tampa Bay is. I'll do all that. So I'll do a show on Wednesday. We'll talk about the game Thursday night. So we talked about yesterday's game. I guess I can't beat a dead horse. I'd like to in this case, and put the face of Matt Nagy on it. Bump. So there's no singing of Bear Down today. More crying in our soup, So let's just pray that we have the Bears come back on Thursday night. It's a short week. They can't dwell on this loss. It's over. But Nagy's got to get in these guys' ears and quit with these fucking penalties. All right, I am serious, and we need to run the ball. Those are the two big things we have to concentrate on for Thursday. Because if you can't run the ball, again, you're not winning. So that is all I got to say about that. All right? So that's all the bitching I'm going to do for today. There's plenty more I could have, but there's no point. So we will move on. We are 3-1. Still, we're tied for first place, but we'll see after tonight's game. God, wouldn't it be great if Atlanta beat the Green Bay Packers? I don't see it happening, but it would be awesome. So I doubt it. We'll probably be in second place tomorrow, but you never know. You never know. So, as I always say, Love your neighbor, help everybody out, love one another. Remember to vote. Vote early and often. And we will see you on Wednesday. We will discuss the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady and Thursday night's game. So you keep on rocking and rolling, and we'll see you too soon for the next Let's Talk Chicago Bears. Oh, bye-bye.